What is going on, people? It is Mo. It is never a foul. It's another day. Spurs show, points drop, Champions League. Fans getting on Antonio Conte. They didn't like the game yesterday. They lost to Sporting Lisbon 2-0 away in the 90th minute and in the injury time. I got a great show with you. I got the guys with me here. I got Jacob. I got Sean from the Spurs Talk Show. They're in the background. We're here to discuss all things Spurs, all things Tottenham Hotspur. And I think their game is going ahead this weekend. So it's kind of like something that they need to go back on track. They need to win a game because Conte's ball is it the first loss of many, which is the title for the show. So here we are, but you know what time it is. Let me play that intro for you. I think you like it. So how do you like this new intro? I think it's cool. I think it's cool. So let me introduce my first guest. Let me get his opinion. Let me see. He's Jacob from the One Up Top channel. He's really good in talking about Spurs. I think I want to get his opinion about what does he think about it. But first, let me get through a couple of comments. Solo MCFC's here. Elias at Liverpool, smash the likes. Yes, people, smash the like. But the one and only Mr. Jacob is here with me. How are you, my friend? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, Mo. How you doing? Thanks for having me on, man. It's good to be able to speak my opinion on Tottenham, whether they win or lose the day after. So, I've had enough time to calm myself down and we can have a good chat about it.
Yes. And are you let me ask you something. Did you go to the game confident as most of the Spurs fans? Everybody thought that you guys are not gonna have a good result, but most of the Spurs fans I talked to, they thought that they would actually confident, they might like win it. It's Antonio Conte, you know what I mean? But because they didn't know that Antonio Conte in Europe is not the greatest manager in the world.
hmm Yeah, I wasn't so confident. I've supported Tottenham for 30 years, and in that time we've won two League Cups, and FA Cup. So it's like, three cups in 30 years. I don't know how where they get their confidence from in every game, because we could play a League One team, and I'm still in the back of my mind thinking we're going to mess this up and bottle it. So I wasn't completely confident because it's European football. Lisbon done well last season. They got a good few players. They had an ex-player of ours who's smashing up Portugal. So I wasn't really confident. I was speaking to a lot of my friends, and I was one of those where I thought I'm kind of happy with a draw, because I don't think we've been churning out results, but we haven't played well. It's got to the point where I've just been watching games and we haven't played great, but the mentality's there, and I think that we will probably nick a result or nick a draw. But I wasn't confident that we were going to play them off the park and go and win comfortably. It wasn't just Tottenham fans saying it. There was people on Talksport saying that we go and win comfortably. But I just think these are people that are very orientated towards British football and don't appreciate and respect that there's other talent out there in Europe. So I thought, for me, I just thought, in the Champions League, how it is. Whatever team you support that goes into any sort of European competition, you want to win your own games and come away from the away games with a point. So I would have took a point yesterday, regardless of the opposition.
Yeah. So before I get Sean on Spurs Talk Show, let me just get through a couple of comments and see who's in the house here with me. Fraser is here with us. Addition for Jude Bellingham. Mustafa's here. Thank you so much. Please hit that like button if you just joined us. A1 is here. Thank you so much for being here. So Sean is here, a reasonable fan, of course. Has his own show, did watch along, so he has a big opinion about the game. Sean, how are you, my friend? How's everything with you? And hit me. What did you think? What did you think? Did you think you're gonna lose this game, or you were confident as well? I was talking to Jacob about it.
Yeah. Big up, mate. Good to see you again, Mo. Is it Jacob? Is it? Yeah, nice to see you,
Yeah, it
Jacob.
is. It is, Sean.
Yeah, listen, mate. First of all, apologies for being late. My internet provider has let me down. Sky once again. I have all sorts of problems, so I'm currently on a dongle. So if I look bad or if it drops out, I do apologise. But yeah, as far as last night went, mate. Listen, I didn't. I thought that a 0-0 was. I said it in my preview show. On the preview shows I went on the bigger channels in the Tottenham community, I was calling for a bore draw, snore draw, 0-0. I thought that the teams were going to set up the same sort of way. Both teams were going to allow the other team's defense to kind of come out with the ball. I saw it happening, a 0-0. I had a lovely little bet that came in because I thought there would be so few goals in the game. But ultimately, obviously, it didn't kind of figure out in the end. We lost 2-0. For me, what really annoyed me, boys, is, and I've been saying it all morning, is a lot of the Spurs community were looking for a reason. They were looking for the opportunity to say, when did Spurs finally play badly and lose? And until then, it was like people that want to be glass half negative, glass half empty, and say, "Oh, it's Levy's fault" or whatever else. Like they had to bite their tongue a little bit until we had a bad result. And the people that were the other way inclined were saying, "Well, it doesn't matter if we're playing badly because we're getting the results done." As soon as you had the cocktail of a bad performance and a bad result, all the knives were going to come out, and they did last night, and they did this morning. And for me, I think that you do have to, if you're going to throw the mud somewhere, I think that the mud should be thrown a little bit towards Antonio Conte, because I think that he doesn't respect the difference between the 3 sub rule and the 5 sub rule. When you have 5 subs, you can technically step into the last 10, 15 minutes of the game and have half of your outfield team on like 90% battery. And Conte doesn't do that. Like, he doesn't do it. He doesn't seem to give a shit. For whatever reason, he looks at the bench and he might not think they're good enough, whatever. But for me, if you look at like what's better? Would you rather have Arta attacking a 10% battery Emerson in the last 5 minutes of the game, or a 90% Doherty? Would you rather Ugarte for Sporting attacking a 20% Højbjerg or a 90% Bissouma? Would you rather, like, for me, like, there's more to looking at the bench and thinking these players aren't good enough. They're not. And for me, I think that the game was lost in the last 5 minutes because Tottenham players they lost concentration. But why do you lose concentration? Well, a part of the variable why you lose concentration is because you're tired. And for me, not utilizing that 5 sub rule, not participating in the 5 sub rule, I think is a problem that's going to be exposed. And I really, 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 really want to see
what
Conte
5 subs, Sean?
up.
Sean, the guy made 1 sub.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
It's not even. He didn't even use 3.
That's what I'm saying.
Crazy.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like there was 4 players, like, and a lot of people were saying, "No, it's Levy's fault. It's Levy's fault. We didn't buy a right wing back. We didn't do this." And I get it. I understand that narrative. But for me, like, you've got Doherty or Jed Spence on the bench. Like, there's fair equity to Emerson. Bring him on. If Emerson's at 80% depleted because he's been playing for 90 minutes, take him off. Bring Doherty on. I'd rather see Arta try and beat Doherty at 100% than beat a 10% Emerson. And I think you can make the same argument for like 5 different players on the pitch.
Put Perisic, put Sissinion on. Like, give Sissinion 10, 15 minutes.
Exactly, man. Exactly, mate. And so for me, as frustrating as I am, and I'm really angry today, to be honest, for a bunch of reasons. So I hope I don't come across too angry. But for me, I feel like
your team should have won it. You know what?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a 0-0. I thought 0-0. I listened to what to what we were just saying before I came on. I thought a 0-0 draw was the fair result. But we let it go because there was bad tactical decisions. Just make some bloody changes. It doesn't happen. Exactly. The result doesn't happen.
Hey, Jacob, tell me about Edwards. Talk to me about him. Talk to me a little bit about Edwards. How he played you off the park. The dribbling, the directness of his game. How is this guy went under the radar for all these in the last 3 years? Was he like released from the academy at Spurs the last 3 years or something?
Yeah, he was under the academy. He was like the next best thing. You know, we had a group of players. I think he was in the same group as Bentaleb and Ryan Mason and stuff like that. But I think his attitude and his application towards the game, I think there was, you know, around the Spurs sort of group, we released him, you know, and it's one of the ones, you know, I think, don't get twisted, he had a good game, but not just Marcus Edwards. I think a lot of people in that game, Sporting Lisbon, found it too easy. Like, I was screaming at the TV because we were losing, you know, second balls all the time. Like Marcus Edwards, when he runs through, don't get it twisted, it was a great run from him, but they just let him do it. Like it was messy. Realistically, we needed someone in there to crunch him, and that for me is like, you know, you got Højbjerg that he run through, you got Bentancur. These are the guys that if you're playing a Contes system, you need two hard nuts in there. And, you know, Højbjerg 9 times out of 10 will win that. But it weren't just Marcus Edwards. There was Arthur, you know, with the goal. He was just let through like he was, you know, a prime Neymar. And there were a lot of the times in midfield, Lisbon were allowed to do that. So if we go back to Marcus Edwards, fair play to him because he's had a good game, and you knew he was going to, you know, as soon as he was on the team sheet up front, you kind of thought he's going to be trumping at the bit. This would be the game of his life, really, because would have been saying for ages in Portugal. Imagine going back to Tottenham and proving them wrong. You know, he could have proved them wrong as in playing well in Portugal, but he gets the opportunity to play against us. So the main game for him would be at the new stadium, but you know, just to be playing against Tottenham. And if I'm, you know, stand corrected, but I think he was in the same group as Harry Kane. Like, I think he just got into the Spurs mold with Harry Kane trying to chomp at a bit at the squad as well. So it was a good performance by Marcus Edwards, but I just think the boys they were just letting players do that all the time. It was just like Sean alluded to. I think there was just a bit of, you know, they were lethargic, the players. A lot of them were tired, and you could see, like, you know, Harry Kane's been brilliant for us this season, but he was knackered. Son's been knackered since we started. Richarlison, for me, was the hungriest player we had, but he's been played out of position. Use the subs. You know what I mean? It's like, Richarlison, why are you playing him out of position for Kulusevski, who's probably our most creative, well, not probably, apart from Kane, he's our most creative player. Kulusevski allows Harry Kane to stay up front. You take Kulusevski out of the team, Harry Kane's got to run around and be like De Bruyne and Stevie G, because who else is going to do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, Bentancur's capable, but he's too safe. You got Højbjerg that half the time just can't even pass straight. I don't understand it. So like Sean said, I'm one of those that, you know, when you're watching the game, you're thinking, here come the Levy outs and all that. But for me,
those knives were sharpening, weren't they, Jacob?
You knew it. Exactly. As soon as that goal went in, you knew it. But for me, I was in the pub with a random guy, and I said, no, this one's on Conte, because, you know, I remember when we lost at home to Burnley, and he had a meltdown saying, I need players here, I need players there. As much as Daniel Levy probably could have spent more, he's give you 7, and you made 1 sub. Do you know what I mean? Like Basuma had 1 bad game against West Ham, and he's going on about, he's not at the level as Bentancur and Højbjerg based off 1 game. Do you know what I mean? I've seen Højbjerg have enough stinkers, but he seems to play every game. Kulusevski gets dropped for what reason I do not know, and then Son stays on the pitch for whatever reason I do not know. Do you know what I mean? Switch it up a little bit. You're going on about Harry Kane and Son, and these guys need to be rested because it's a long season. Start resting them. Start bringing them off
let's see.
When they play rubbish, start resting them. Then, you know what I mean? Like, for me, Harry Kane or Son, either one of them could have come off yesterday, and I'd have been happy for Richarlison to go left or central, because he was the only person I felt that, you know, he kept going offside, but I felt he was the only person that was going to give it a go. But we played that badly that the highlight of the game was Marcus Edwards.
That offside goal when Kane put through both Sonny and Richie went on, and it was offside, and he took it around the keeper. If you actually look at that, I've seen it all across I've got 1,000 WhatsApp groups. I've got 1,000 people saying that's poor timing from Richie. I'm like, actually, nah, that's poor distribution from Harry Kane. If you actually look at it back, and I got access to Y Scout, so I can like zoom back and watch the moment and how long Harry Kane held on to that ball half a second too long. Both Sonny and Richie were offside. I think I agree with you, Jacob. Like, no one wants to give Harry Kane any critique. People are like a little bit nervous in the Spurs community about going too hard on Sonny, because there's a lot of Sonny lovers out there. You can't go too hard on Sonny, and therefore they don't want to go near Kane either. But actually, I think Kane is flattered to deceive this season because he's got 4 or 5 goals. And because he's scoring the 4 or 5 goals, people are like, oh, it's the same Kane as ever. But it ain't. Like, Harry Kane hasn't really started this. He does look old. He does look tired. He looks like he's not on the top. And I think that, for me, I make you right. I think that you could have dropped Harry Kane. You could have taken Harry Kane off. People saying to me on my show earlier, why are you going after Sonny? And I'm like, well, I'm going after any of them, to be honest. All 3 of them look absolutely woeful. The only person that looks like he's busy is Decky when he comes on. And I don't know what the front 3 is. A lot of people are looking further down the pitch to throw their smoke out and their mud out. I think that the front 3 or the front 4, there's something going on there, and we need to figure that stuff out, because Leicester is a game that's coming up on the weekend, and that's a game where we need to put them to the fire and get 4 or 5 past them. And I'm a little bit worried about that now, because that should be 3 points in the bag. But after last night's performance, I feel like unless Conte makes a brave decision and starts to change things up, and I'm guessing we're going to talk about that, Mo, in a second, but there's a lot of changes that need to happen elsewhere in the team that will hopefully kind of balance the team a bit more than what we've been seeing right now.
And it's crazy because you talk about the scope of our attack, but I'm looking at that comment now from the Arsenal edition. That's another thing that's an issue, because it's like sometimes our defence was getting cut through, but when you've got Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, these kinds of guys, it's like, don't get twisted. Last season they got us through, and Conte got the maximum out of them. But I always felt that going into a new season, if we're still relying on them, I don't think he's going to get any more out of them. Like Eric Dyer is the only one that I'm all right with, because you take him out. I
think Eric Dyer is not bad, Jacob. I don't think Eric Dyer is bad.
It's one of the ones. I'll take it back. I was just reading the comment. Realistically, Eric Dyer is the best communicator, because I think if you take him out,
he's a leader.
I don't know who's shuffling that back line. But Ben Davies, wicked. But I remember just before the season started and we signed all those players, and I was on plenty of podcasts where they were talking about our transfer window's been a 10 out of 10. But I'm like, it went round in a circle, come to me. I was like, it's a 6 out of 10. And I was like, why is that? I said, we've bought 7 players. We haven't got a creative midfielder. We're a centre-back injury away from Davies and Sanchez coming back in. It's just, do you know what I'm saying? It's like everybody was going crazy about this wild transfer window and can Tottenham win the league? And I was just as straight as it comes.
How early in the season, in the window, were you having that conversation?
This was once they were all signed. So I'd say it's probably about 2 weeks before the season started. So when Tottenham got their business done early and everybody was still pensive with their transfers, people were talking to me about 10 out of 10, and I'm like, all right then. So who's good? If Harry Kane gets injured, who's creating? And everybody in the podcast is like, oh, don't know. But you're saying it's a 10 out of 10 though.
See, I was more like, when we were like, I don't know, July the 1st, and we signed Perisic, Foster. I think I'm not sure if we got Bissouma done, but there was, and I think Richarlison was on the brink of being done. There was 3 or 4, and there was still like 6 weeks left, 7 weeks left in the window. And people were asking me, what's the window thus far? I was calling it a 7 at that particular time, bearing in mind that I thought, well, we still got 7 weeks left to get the rest of the business done. But if it stayed the way it stayed, and it did, basically, it basically ended up being nothing more after about like mid-July. So I hear what you're saying. People that, look, I mean, I don't know, man. The community is super divided. Some people are waiting for their opinion to be right, and other people try and judge it objectively. But the window, we didn't do enough. We didn't, like, we've got 5 players in our team that apparently can play right wing back, but none of them are right wing backs that like really excel or really step up and make you think he's a good right wing back. You got Jed Spence, we don't know. Matt Doherty and Emerson are like 6 out of 10s at best. And then maybe you could put Lucas Moura in there, but probably not. Maybe you could put Decky in there, but that's an experiment. Like, right wing back is such an important place, and we didn't really improve on that one, right? And I think the centre back, as much as I agree with you about Eric Dyer, has done a good job for Tottenham. He's not a well-beating centre back, Jacob, and he hasn't got anyone to challenge him either. Like, there's nobody.
This is it. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and it's one of the ones like, everybody, all I hear is, and it's correct in that Conte's system, the most creative players should be the wing backs. Now, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, well, we're screwed then. Because I can't look at any of our fullbacks and think, who do I trust to get 6 assists this season? Do you know what I mean? Because
maybe Perisic, maybe,
yeah, but because he's on set pieces. If you're talking about general play, it's like I don't want to compare it to Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he gets all the scope and all the badness about his defending. But going forward, he gets about 10 assists and about 5 goals. You look at Man City; they've got Cancelo. If these are the teams that we're trying to compete with, and your fullbacks are the most important, in your system, then you need to be saying, right, who's going to create more? And it's like Emerson. I don't think, personally, I don't think I've seen him ever create a goal. I've never seen Emerson get down there and swing one in. Ryan Sessegnon on the occasion.
An assist. He got one assist when it was an own goal.
Sorry, before we move on, we need the likes up, guys. Guys, hit that like button. It is free. It's underneath the chat. The like button, please, guys. Underneath it, it's free. It just helps us. It looks like this. It is free. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Guys, I want to tell you something. Do you know why still Conte plays 3 up top? Because of the wing backs. Do you know if he gets a good right wing back, one of Son, Richarlison will be dropped every game, and it's going to be 3 in the midfield. This is Conte always likes 3-5-2. Even at Chelsea, he dropped the wingers and played Hazard and Costa together up top. And played Matic.
Who is the 3 you play in the midfield, though, Mo? Do you play? Because we got 4 number 6s, haven't we?
Kulusevski, Bissouma, Bentancur, or Kulusevski, Bentancur, and Højbjerg.
You bring Kulu back into the midfield.
Kolo is the problem with Harry Kane now at the moment. This is why the eye test. Sometimes he fails the eye test now because Conte's system relies on 2 forwards close to each other. But because you don't have the wing back that can create, now he plays 3 up top. Now Harry Kane has to drop a little and get the ball. Conte's system relies on 3 in the midfield that cover this whole area and 2 very creative wing backs and 2 forwards to occupy the defense. But because he doesn't have a wing back, he has to play someone on the right, try to create something. And that's a problem. Even Son does not suit the system. Son is a winger. He's a flat-out winger. He's not a forward. This is why he doesn't suit this. It's not going to work with Son.
But do you not think though that Harry Kane? I was saying this conversation earlier. People saying we should play 3-5-2, but we can't play 3-5-2 because we haven't got a
second forward
midfielder. Yeah. But I'm like, well, I agree. If the option was like, does he want to play 3 in the midfield? Looking at the actual midfielders we've got, let's say he went for Bissouma, Bentancur, and Højbjerg, and one of them was a little bit more given the forward role. The only way you could do that is if you put like a Deki at a Kulusevski at right wing back or a Lucas Moura there. You sacrifice a little bit of defensive, capabilities in order to balance out the fact that you've got 3 players in the midfield who are essentially 6s, maybe 8s at best, but no way there's a 10 in there. Or if you don't want to do that, then you want to use one of the forward players to play in the 10, and we already do that. Mo, like Harry Kane drops deep, like in 90% of games that we play, Harry Kane does come deep. So, like as much as we start with a technical on paper formation of 3-4-3, throughout the game, you see Harry Kane dropping into the 10 role anyway. So, are we not playing the 3-5-2?
But you don't have a forward.
Harry Kane
So who's the forward then? Who's the strike? Who's the Diego Costa? Who is the who's the Tevez of the? Who's the Lukaku of Inter? Who's that?
Yeah, but I think what it is I agree. I kind of agree with both of you. But what it is that if you remember Chelsea, they didn't play as much as they play Hazard and Costa. I remember them winning the league, and a lot of the time they played Costa, Hazard, and Pedro. So they had all 3 of them up front. So and then with Inter it was predominantly 2 up front. But it's one of those again. Like we're talking about Son. You guys are saying he's a winger, but Tottenham got to the Champions League final with Son up front. So he can play up there because we had Harry Kane injured for all that time, and Son got us. Son scored about 4 goals in 5, along with Lucas Moura, to get us to the Champions League final. So I think Son's more, as he gets older, because he's not the whippet that we once had. I think if we've got Kane and we've got Son, and they've got this apparent telepathic partnership, then just chuck them 2 up front. Then I don't see the point of Harry Kane dropping off here and then Son going wide. If them 2 play like that up front, stick them both up front. And if Conte's preferred position is 3 in the midfield to pack out, like you guys are saying, then I don't understand if that's your preferred position. You've got Son and Kane. Stick them two up front and do your three. I generally
Put Decky at the back. Yeah, I agree.
exactly, but I don't know.
You need a creative wing back, Jacob. You don't have.
Yeah, no, this is it. No, I agree with you. I fully agree with you because that's I was just about to go into that because if you got them two up front and they're putting their hands up saying, you know, I'll just stay up here and score goals, and then Emerson Royal has got the ball, or like, you know, because Perisic is pretty decent. You know, I like the fact that his aim is to get his head down and get the cross in, and left foot, right foot, he's quite productive. But you know, like Sean said, we've got 5 people that can play right back. And I think the only person I'd be happy with on the team sheet to go right back, and I'd be like, right, is Jed Spence, just because I've seen the other 4.
I want to say exactly, mate. 100%. What I would say is one of the reasons I think Tottenham has struggled, I think also one of the major reasons why Sonny has had his confidence dipped is I think it's a lot of people are just focusing on Sonny in a microscope and saying, what's happened to Sonny? Like, why isn't he up for it? What's going on? Is his confidence? I believe that Tottenham, for a not insignificant part of the season, have had Davinson Sanchez, who is a solid right-sided centre-back defensively, but absolutely woeful with his ability to distribute the ball. If you're playing with a back three, you need to have both of the width in the centre-backs to be able to distribute the ball well with their feet. You've had Ben Davies on the left and you've had Sanchez on the right. Neither of them are particularly good. Now, Longlay's better on the left, and Romero's better on the right. But in those games when Sanchez and Emerson have been forced to play on the right-hand side, Conte has said, I believe, look, none of you guys just focus on what you're good at, which is defending. And I think that what's resulted in that is if you actually look at the stats and the data, you can see it in the heat maps of the players. When Ben Davies has played, his average position has been literally on a heat map inside the opposition half on the left touchline. And then Perisic 20 yards further forward than him on the touchline, which means that there's no space for Sonny to do what Sonny does well, which is run into space and have the pace and the ball in front of him. He's been forced to come inside. And I think that part of the reason why he's not playing well is, yes, because his confidence has been hit. But I also think the reason why his confidence has been hit is because he's being forced to play in a position that he's not used to playing in, which is crowded by players. When you've got Perisic or Sessegnon playing 30 yards further forward than the other side of the pitch, and you've got the centre-back on the left-hand side playing inside the opposition half, it means that the opposition are also going to crowd out that area as well. And so Sonny is not half the man when he has to work with two meters, right, to get a thing done. But when he's got the space, and for me, I don't understand why Conte hasn't tried to reverse it and play him on the right. And I saw in the first, as soon as the second half started last night, we had a 25-minute period at the second half last night where Tottenham had the dominance in that game. And if you actually watch, Sonny was played on the right-hand side and Richie played on the left. And I think that's something that we should look into and focus on maybe more, because if there's this drive to push the ball down the left, then you're suffocating Sonny and not allowing him to have the space to do what he does best. You put him on the right-hand side, and in that 20-minute period, obviously it didn't create or result in a goal, but I feel like Tottenham had the upper hand in that 20-minute period in the first area of the second half. And for me, that's something we should be looking at for the weekend as well.
Can we move on to a little bit of the Leicester game, not the league? Now, Conte's system, the brilliance of Conte in the league, creating a system that works. Would you think that you need to change something against Leicester just because you lost the game in Champions League? And Conte is used to losing in the Champions League. The guy with Inter came last at his group, still freaking came second in the league and won the league the year after. It's not doesn't matter for him. Do you think the change is needed in the league, or do you think march on, same train, let's get it done?
The thing is, though, we all, you know how it is as Spurs. They're not even just Spurs fans, football fans. It's one of the ones. As soon as you lose or a bad performance, you're calling the shots. But then obviously, you're going by what you see in the 90 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So we all know that Conte is probably the most stubborn coach in the league, if I'm honest, because he won't change his system. And even when he does change his system, when we're chasing the game and he goes to a back four and he puts Ben Davies on the left, all of a sudden, even though you want a back four, but I start panicking because all of a sudden you start seeing gaps because they're so used to having that 5. So I don't think we need to change the formation. I just think we need to change the personnel. Like, I think there's a few players that have got their feet under the table, and I just think they need a little bit of an awakener. So it's like, I'm quite confident based off any player that we put in, Leicester we should be beating because they're in turmoil at the minute. But again, if we go with the same lineup, Leicester might think, you know what, they had a bad result against Lisbon. Let's see what they got. So there's a few changes I look at. I think Emerson Royal, like, I don't want to pick on him too much, because the Emerson Royal that first came in that stressed me out for weekends, he's actually improved. You know what I mean? I've looked at him, you know, if I saw him in person, I'd say fair play, because you were absolutely terrible and you've obviously listened to the coaching. But I think he needs to come out, because you think in our starting 11 that everybody would talk about, he's probably our worst player, but he's had the most minutes. So he's literally started every game, hardly ever come off. So I'd have a look at bringing in something else in there. So Jed Spence and, you know, Doherty, take your pick, because in my eyes,
I've never seen this Spence guy. I've never seen
you've
him.
never seen him. Well, the thing is, what it is for me, it's a wild card, because, like you've said, yeah, you haven't seen him, but it's one in ones. You're not going to know what, you know, Conte's not going to want to know it. He's not going to know what he's about until you chuck him in. Like, there's no point in chucking him in League Cup games. Just chuck him in. Do you know what I mean? At Leicester at home, chuck him in. If he's had a bad half, bring him off. If he has a great half, he cements his position. You know, it gets to the point where you've got Perisic in the season.
3 guys ahead of him, right? It's
Doherty, but Mo,
and
difference is
even Mora is ahead of him at the right wing back.
Well, Mora's injured, right? Mora's injured, and he had a chance in the pre-season and looked absolutely woeful against Rangers as a right wing back. But I understand where you're coming from, Mo, with your reservation. I also completely appreciate where Jacob's coming from with the rationale, because I think that if you were to say, "Oh, we've got a youth team player," like who looks like Harvey White, for example, at Tottenham, right? Let's just throw him in and see how he does. I don't think that necessarily makes sense. But with Jed Spence, last season, he made his name last season against Leicester in the FA Cup, right? He also smashed it against... Hello, bro. He also smashed it against... He's coming in. Hi, mate. How you doing? What's cracking?
Say hello, then.
Hi.
Go on. Carry on.
Nice. He also smashed it against Arsenal in the FA Cup. I think the reason... I don't want to take words out of your mouth here, Jacob, but like for me... I would imagine the reason why you're confident enough to say, let's throw Spence in the deep end, is because he comes across as a sort of personality that, given like come the hour, come of the man, he steps up when the big games, when the big opportunities come. I don't think you would just throw that same opportunity out to anybody who's looking good. Mm-hmm. But Jed Spence is somebody that last season, the best 2 performances you saw from him in a Nottingham Forest shirt were against the big boys in Leicester and against Arsenal in the FA Cup. And I think that you could do the same and see how he handles it. And I think if you throw him in against against Leicester on Saturday, I think he's the sort of character that would grab the ball by the horns and would smash it. And if that's the case, that's what it's going to take to change Conte's mind. He's not going to. He's whatever he does on the training pitch isn't going to change Conte's mind. But if you throw him in a Premier League game, I think Jed Spence is the sort of guy that would put in a worldie. And then from then on, we would have a new conversation around whether or not... He ain't going to be perfect. He's going to make mistakes. Of course he is. But I think a lot of the Tottenham fans would get behind him, because most of the Tottenham fans don't have that much faith in Emerson or Doherty. So they'd be very willing to get behind Jed Spence, cheer his name, get behind him, find a song for him and pump him up. And I think he's the sort of character that would hit the ground running. And that's why I want to see it. I agree with Jacob on that basis.
Are you guys like thinking about the North London Derby at all, or is it just after the break, early? No. Because I have a lot of Arsenal fans in the comment. They're thinking this is if we face the Spurs, we'll like smash them, blah blah blah. But you don't think it's too early for this? Who knows? It's like 3 weeks from now or something.
Do you know what it is? Yeah,
Arsenal fans need to like wait a minute, bro. Like the only tough test you've had all season was against United, and you got dumped.
You know what it is for me? You as a Spurs fan and as an Arsenal fan, NLD's, you know, unless you get to a Champions League final or you're on the cusp of winning the Premier League, that's the biggest game. Now, you always think about it, but it's like the way Spurs play and the way Arsenal play, that's where it suits us. You know, if you get to with Tottenham, if you get a team that literally says we're going to do a Tottenham against Tottenham and we're just going to sit off, Tottenham don't know what to do because we haven't got any number 10s. We ain't got a De Bruyne.
Exactly.
We ain't got an Eriksen. It's like you're relying on our most creative player is Harry Kane, but our best striker is Harry Kane. So in an ideal world, he needs to get on the end of his own passes, which is impossible. So if you do a Tottenham against Tottenham like West Ham did, it gets to the point where we're bereft of ideas. So with the North London derby, if Arsenal are naive and think they can just do what they do play some good football. But I just think if you just keep trying to press us, if you press us, you're in trouble. That's the reason why we didn't get the best results last season. But Man City and Liverpool couldn't beat us because they say to themselves, we're going to dominate whoever comes in front of us. And that suits Tottenham because we're just like, right, we're literally doing a Leicester that when they won the league. We'll sit here and you can have all the ball you want, but the minute we get the ball, we're just going to go 1, 2, 3 and score. So
yeah, Jacob, on that basis, mate, do you think that a central midfielder, creative midfielder, because I completely agree with everything you're saying, right? Like when we play against teams that sit back, it's the toughest games. Tottenham do better against harder teams because that they have the confidence to come at us, but the weaker teams just sit back. Do you think that in January, a creative midfielder who can help us create the rationale to break those teams down is more important than a right wing back or a centre back?
I think so, because what it is that, of course, we need improve. You can always improve your squad. The problem with Tottenham under Contes is we ain't got a plan B. So it's like I was screaming out for Eriksen because Eriksen knows the club. He knows the strikers that we've got. It's like if you run and got yourself a player like that, you can kind of say to yourself, all right, let's say Eriksen's on the bench and we're playing Sporting Lisbon last night and we're not really creating much. Conte, all he's got to do is bring off one of the front three and go, right, I'll just stick Eriksen in there. And it gets to the point where you say to Eriksen, you just probe and pick off passes. And then Harry Kane will be like, right, I ain't got to drop off. I'll just stay in the box. You bang him in, Chris. But then it's like, because we haven't got that, all we're doing is relying on Harry Kane to drop off or Kuzelewski to take someone off. And if them two are having a stinker, the wing backs don't create. Perisic is a good crosser, but then half the time he's crossing, Kane's not in the box because he's dropped off deep to put him through. So it's like Harry Kane's just like a headless chicken right now. I love the fact that he can create, but that needs to be sporadic. It's not like it's getting to the point now where literally Harry Kane, who's arguably top 5 striker in Europe, is become our Kevin De Bruyne. That's just stupid.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I completely agree with everything you're saying, Jacob. It's refreshing to hear it, man. Very refreshing.
Guys, one before we just talk about the objectives. Do you think if Antonio Conte doesn't get out of this group, it is something that people should look at after the season? Is it a must to get out of this group? Is Spurs' objective just to get top 4, or it is to get out of the group, go deep in the Champions League challenge, especially with the squad you have?
I'll go first if you don't mind, Jacob.
That's what I was going to let you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. I would say that for me, I think you got to take it like competition by competition. There's a shit ton of Tottenham fans that I argue with all day long that say that a trophy, winning the Carabao Cup, means more to them than finishing, second in the Premier League and going to the final day and losing on goal difference to Manchester City. I posited this scenario to all of the fans that I speak to. I say, would you rather Tottenham win the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup? One of the two. Those who want a trophy at all means, and finish 6th in the league, or would you rather finish 2nd in the league, go take Man City all the way to the final day, and ultimately lose at some fairly decent final stage of every cup, whether it's finals, semi-finals, or whatever, and but go all the way in the league itself to take Man City to the last day, and ultimately come up short of a trophy. And most people in Tottenham fans that I speak to would say, no, I want a Carabao Cup, I want an FA Cup because it's been so long since we've had it, and we need to get that monkey off the back. I understand where they're coming from. For me, I think that I'd rather choose the latter. I'd rather see us progress, because I think that there's more that you can take from your league position than there is from your cups. Because I think you can get through cup competitions by playing weak teams. For this season, for me, I think the Champions League. I think like par for the course for Tottenham would be to get to the round of maybe the quarterfinals. I think if Tottenham if we fail to get through the group, I don't see that happening. But if we did fail, that would be a failure. If we got dumped out in the round of 16, that would be a failure. If we got to the quarterfinals, that's about where Tottenham should be. If we get past that, semi-finals or final, or go on to win it, then that's an overachievement. I think that the Champions League is about the quarterfinal stages where Tottenham, where we are in our general journey. I think the quarterfinals is about reasonable. That's I don't know how.
Devil's advocate, Sean. There are way more than 10 teams in the Champions League better than you.
Yeah,
way more.
Yeah,
reaching the quarterfinals and achieving.
Okay, more than 10. Name them.
More than 10. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Juventus, the better than.
I won't go Juventus. Juventus is dead at the minute.
On paper, they're better than. Like you remember.
On paper, yeah.
You still have
on
a
paper,
coach that has,
better than us.
No, but not only. You still have a coach.
Okay.
I am
that's
counting.
Three. That's three. Yeah, go on.
I'm Liverpool.
Yeah.
Man City.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich. I
Yeah.
think Dortmund has more experience than you in the Champions League. Leipzig has more experience. You remember?
Oh, don't be saying Leipzig.
Guys,
come on, mate.
You know what the problem is?
Not on paper.
You know the problem is? I am counting not only the squads. I'm counting Antonio Conte in the Champions League. I'm counting him. He really doesn't do well for some reason.
I get it.
Really, for 10 years now, 10 years, his coaching career started, I think, in 2008. And his real coaching career started when he took over Juventus in 2011 and started winning the league. And he hasn't, 12 years now, he hasn't done well. For some code there that doesn't work for him.
So are you saying round of 16 is where Tottenham meet par?
Yes. And then if you get further than this, it's a good
achievement.
Okay,
exactly. And that's fine. That's fine. I see it as the quarterfinals. But what I would say is that's why I think games like last night being sloppy in the last 3 minutes, that's why I think it's going to really hinder us, because I take your point, and not just with Conte, but Tottenham generally in Europe away from home. The last time Tottenham won a game in Europe away from home, I think it was Genk in
I think it was
the season before last. We didn't win a game from home in the Conference League. You have to go back to the qualification into the Europa League in the season before last, and we beat Genk and we beat some other random team. But Tottenham don't do well away from home, and you're right about Conte. But that's why it pisses me off that we gave up the 3 points last night to Sporting Lisbon, because who you get if Tottenham, I think Tottenham will finish first or second. Now I'm more inclined to think we'll finish second, but I do think we'll qualify out of the group. But if you finish second, it increases the likelihood of who you like, the difficulty of the team you get in the last 16, right? Whereas if you finish first, you're going to get a better chance of getting a team that's a little bit easier. And so I think that last night's result will prove very consequential for what Tottenham do in the Champions League as we go through the season.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I agree with both your points, because, when Mo says about 10 teams, I've just seen that list come up and I thought you can't really disagree, because it's like when we're talking about on paper and the way we're playing, I'm somebody that likes a little bit of expansive football, and I've said it to my friends all the time that if you're going to become an elite team in the Premier League and you're going to be an elite team in Europe, you need to be able to mix it up both. Now, Tottenham traditionally, ever since I've supported them for the first, say, 15, 20 years, we've always played good football. That's what made me support Tottenham. We've always had teams that would play good football. You'd have the odd fixture who played well, but that wonderful football with your Bowes, your Ginolas, your Berbatovs, Modrics, nice football, but never won us anything. And then recently we've started getting to the point where we've brought in Pochettino, who's tried to mix it up a little bit. And then we've had your Mourinho and Contes, and it's been more about digging in and getting a result. But for me, if you're going to be an elite side, you need to be able to do both. You look at PSG and the players that they've got, but they are able to go into teams and play a Real Madrid and try and dig in and get the result. But then if it gets to the point where Madrid allow them to attack, you'll get spanked by PSG. It's the same with Man City. We've seen Man City win the Premier League and go, they play Brentford and win 1-0, and you're thinking, you put in all your Kevin De Bruyne's and all these guys in your dream team thinking that they're going to win 6 or 7-0, but they win 1-0 and get the job done. But with Tottenham, it's like we're not doing that at the minute. We've gone to the point where we've got to the ugly side. I've prayed for Tottenham to be an ugly side, like just get the result, whether we're winning badly or not. The problem is that because we're playing so badly from minute one, it just gets to the point where you're thinking, well, there's only going to be a matter of time before we play badly and lose. And, you know, that time came yesterday. It needs to get to the point where Conte, you know, he's obviously a better manager than I could ever be, but he needs to understand that if we're playing badly, we're not always going to win games. It needs to get to the point where you just got to let the shoe off the horn just a little bit. So then, you know, if we're playing Leicester at home and we're allowed just a bit, you know, to be on the front foot just a little bit more, we could probably go and beat Leicester 4-0. You know, the way we played against Southampton, we conceded the first goal. As soon as we conceded the first goal, it felt like we were allowed to do what we wanted. And realistically, we could have gone on and beat them 7-1. But then since then, it stopped. And, you know, I've been saying this to Tottenham fans, a lot of them cuss me out. I'm like, right, Mourinho came in. Mourinho come in and pretty much did the same thing with worse players. We finished 7th and got to a League Cup final, which he should have been allowed to manage. And everybody had uproar about he's a dinosaur. Now, if Mourinho had this same squad, right, and we were doing, if he had the same squad, we probably would have got a result against Lisbon, and we'd probably be in the same position in the league. But they'll be cussing at Mourinho because he did a bad job against United, a bad job at United and other clubs. So it's like, realistically, what's the difference? Because if like the season we had Mourinho, if we had Bentancur, if we had Kulusevski, if we had Romero, would we have finished 7th? I don't think so. I think we might have pushed for top 4. So you know, you got to start asking them questions about, because realistically, Mourinho got a better tune out of Kane and Son than Conte's doing.
Mate, the only reason people lost faith with Mourinho, it was because he played Mourinho ball, which was boring as hell. And if I'm entirely honest, we gotta be realistic as Tottenham fans and look at the football we're playing right now and thinking it ain't much better under Conte. Conte ball is boring as fuck as well, right? So it's boring, mate. Like
it is, man. It's so predictable. You know, like when you're playing, it's like there's.
Listen,
I was talking to my mate.
Guys, stats say otherwise. Actually, stats say you're the 5th in XG in the league. You're actually 3rd in the conceded XG. So you're on paper the best 3rd defense. You're the 5th best attack after 6 games. So actually, you have.
How do you create the XG? It's not about the XG. It's how do you create the XG, right? Like, what's the
chances created? Chances.
Yeah, but like stats don't show you what happens in the build-up play.
That's what I'm saying. Like a chance created is Eric Dyer pinging the ball to the other end of the pitch, and Harry Kane puts a header in, and it's like, oh, nearly. That's a. But for me, I'm like, well, that's just you know, that's Sunday League. I was doing that when I was 10. It'd be like, yeah, go on, Jake, and I'll just boot it from centre half, and then they'd be like, oh, and then I've set up a goal. Do you know what I mean? If it was XG in my Sunday League team when I was 15, I'll be De Bruyne. You know what I mean?
I can't wait until the stats catch up with the history of the play, like from the start to the finish. Like, what's the play? Like, XG is whatever it is. But like, I know that
there is another one now. There's another stat now. It is not XG. I think it's the pass before the chance is created, and that measures.
Isn't that called a key pass? Like if you go to SofaScore,
key pass. It's before that. It's before that. Pass. It calculates the pass that led to something. It actually measures how team are building these chances. Are they just shanking it?
Is that called PP? Is that called PPGA? Is that
something like this?
PPGA? I've seen that before.
They don't have it on most of the websites now, but it's a very, very important step because it shows are teams just like playing long ball, or is just actually a pass game that is a plan going forward. But anyway, I still think that you have the 3rd shots on target in the game. I, of course, being a Conte fan because I support Inter and he won the league with us. For me, he can do what he did. We were a position-based team, by the way. For the first half of the season, we were a position-based team until he moved. At the end, we ended the season with like 56 average position. And also, we were under huge pressure at the end of the season. But for Spurs, for some reason, he can't get this. You are the position stats for you is 50-50 in every game you played. for some reason he can't get his game going, and I don't know why is that, but it has to be down to the midfield. To be honest, it has to be down to the midfield.
I think
Definitely it is. Yeah. I agree. It is the midfield, because it's like, don't get twisted though. When it comes to like heart and soul, I like Højbjerg. Do you know what I mean? Because you ain't got to worry about G'ing him up. He's ready. But like, there's been a lot of games where he frustrates me because instead of concentrating on ball winning, he'd be too busy telling other people what to do. You're always seeing Højbjerg doing this, and you're thinking like, yeah, tell that to yourself, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's like you got that. You got Bentancur, who I like, but I think under a different manager, he'd be encouraged to start assisting more, because he's quite slick, he's good on the ball, and he's got a good pass on him. But it feels like I think Bentancur must have like 1 or 2 assists and no goals since he joined Spurs, and that's not the Bentancur that I'm seeing. Under a more fluid manager, I think he gets a lot more goals and assists and gets pushed up the pitch a bit more. But then we got Bissouma, and it's like he's had 1 game against West Ham which was bad. And it's like he's been left out to hang out and dry. But if you ask me,
100%, 100%
do you know what I mean? A top. If you ask me and say who should be number 1 in that position, it should be Bissouma. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't understand.
It works in a different way. When Christian Eriksen came to Inter, he spent half a season or a season and a half on the bench. Until he realized that to play the way Antonio Conte wants, he has to drop deep. He played when he was at Spurs, Christian Eriksen, he was a number 10, clear number 10.
Yeah.
He came to Inter and he was a regista. You guys know what a regista is. He's a deep line playmaker, which is what he plays now at Man United. Exactly. That's Antonio Conte. And I think Antonio Conte is not going to play Bissouma until the guy realizes this is why my manager wants me to play, and I have to do it the way he wants. And it doesn't matter. Antonio Conte doesn't give chances. We were crying for him to give Christian Eriksen a chance.
When Eriksen finally got his chance for Inter, were Inter playing 3-5-2?
Yes.
Yeah, they were.
He played next to Brozovic. He played next to Brozovic.
Okay, so what you're saying then is that if Bissouma can do what Conte wants and do what was the word? What was the name for the type of player?
No, he's not. Regista, which is a deep line playmaker.
Regista. Yeah. Okay, so if Bissouma's going to do that, then because I look at Regista, I look at Bissouma as playing. I don't know whether you call him a 6 or an 8. I think he's not an 8, but he's certainly not a 10, right? At best, he's an 8. But he's I don't know. I personally look at the 4 midfielders we have as 4 6s. Maybe 1 or 2 of them could become 8s, but none of them are 10s. For me, if what you're saying is required for Bissouma to get Conte's nod of approval, then it requires the formation to go to 3-5-2. And if that's going to happen, then it means that Conte has to get over the fact of dropping one of Sonny, Kane, Kulu, or Richarlison to the bench. Or so
Kulu
two
can
of,
play
two
a
of,
third
right?
midfielder. Kulu can play a third midfielder. Kulusevski can play a third. If you have Bissouma and another motor next to him, which is Bentancur or Højbjerg, Kulusevski can be
But Kulu can't play that role and Bissouma.
No, right? But Bissouma is going to be the deepest. Bissouma is going to be the deepest guy on the midfield, the one in front of the defense. I think
so. Like the guy who used to play for Leeds and went to Man City. What's his name? I forget.
Calvin Phillips.
Calvin Phillips. Yes. Is that what you think that Bissouma can play for Tottenham?
Bissouma should be one of the best in this position in the league.
Better. You know what it is though. I agree with both of you, but it's like, one thing I hate is that when. It doesn't matter if you're a Tottenham fan, Inter Milan fan, Arsenal, Chelsea. It's like when you say a player can play there, that frustrates me, because it's one of the ones. If you're going into the market or you're training with your squad, you should be saying that player plays there. The problem with Tottenham is that we're still talking about, can Kulusevski play right wing? Can he play centre midfield? Harry Kane, can he play number 10? Can he? It's like by now he's worked. Conte's been there for a couple of years now, effectively. You should be saying, he's playing there. He's playing there. The reason why he won at Inter and won at Chelsea and won at Juventus, it weren't because of like, oh, shall I try this or shall I try that? You look at the Chelsea juggernaut. It was like Victor Moses is playing there. Alonso's playing there. John Terry's playing there. Luiz is playing there. Costa's playing there. And then they just went bash and then literally just wiped the slate clean. Whereas Tottenham...
Respectfully, I disagree. Antonio Conte is one of the managers like Pep Guardiola. He took a winger, switched him into a midfielder. He took a winger, switched him to a left winger. Like Perisic won the Champions League with Bayern Munich as the starting left winger. Came to Inter and said, you know what? I don't have left wingers. You're going to play left wing back and you have to defend. It is the way it goes. Christian Eriksen came as a number 10. He said, no, you're going to be a midfielder.
True, yeah.
You'll have to track back. Victor Moses was a winger. And he said, no, you're a right wing back. Bernardo Silva at Man City, he came as a winger from Monaco, and now he's one of the best midfielders in the world. It is the way it is. You know what I mean? The big the big coaches, their players, they adapt. It's not the other way around, which is it's a new era. It's a new era of football. You remember back in the days, the coaches used to adapt to the players. Now you have to adapt to my plans. Otherwise, you're not playing. You're not starting.
I actually agree on that. It's just I think my frustration comes from like when you say that about Eriksen and Victor Moses, you bang on with that, Mo, 100%. I think what my frustration comes through is like when you're talking about Harry Kane. Like, you know, if Harry Kane went to any other club and was sold, the manager wouldn't bring him in and go, what shall I do with Harry Kane? Whereas with Harry Kane, I don't know what he's going to do, because I think to myself, he'll start off and he'll just hang about and be a goal hanger, which is what I want him to do. And then all of a sudden he gets bored and drops off. And then before you know it, I'm looking at it thinking, why are you stood next to Højbjerg picking up the ball? Do you get what I'm saying? So that bit defeats what you're saying. But then at the same time, I get what you're saying in terms of Kulusevski adapting into maybe a central role, or you know, or a wing back role. I agree with you on that, because if you're going to work under a world boss like Conte or Guardiola or Klopp, if they say to you, you've got to adapt, they're not just going to say that and not work hard on you in training. They're going to do it. And if you're not willing to feed into the philosophy, then they'll look at it and go, right, then I'll just go and get someone else that will, because Perisic will just come in. He's 33 and he's just adapted to every single position you could think of. You could probably play Perisic up front tomorrow and he'll probably do a job and score a goal, because that's what he's done at Bayern Munich. He's done it with the Croatian squad. He's done it with Conte at Inter. So it's the rough with the smooth, really. But I just think with Spurs, it's just there's certain players that you just think, right, you just need to stay up front. You need to stay in centre midfield. You need to be our defensive midfielder. Everybody else, you've got to learn to adapt. But the spine is what's annoying me, because that's the thing that keeps getting changed around.
Okay. Yeah. Before we end this, okay, Jacob, what last words on? Are you that upset about like the Sporting, and is it just a move on thing? We have to finish this. It's before the hour, so go ahead.
No, that's fine. It's one of the ones. I was talking to my friend at work, funnily enough, about that, and he was like, "Well, you know, what are you saying now? Do you think you're just going to go on a bad run?" And I said, "That's only defined in the next game, and that's how football is. You know, Klopp says it all the time. Guardiola says you're only as good as your next game. So, you know, Champions League, it's a tough jaunt. So I'm not going to sit there and start putting my toys out the pram if we lose to Sporting Lisbon, because they're a good side. They proved that yesterday that they do play good football. But I think if we go to Leicester, I would like to see a change in the attitude, a change in the energy, and a change in the personnel. You know, if Conte comes in and I see a Bissouma, I see Son dropped, I see, you know, I look at Romero and I love the guy, but every game he's played, apart from Southampton, he's been really bad. Like I looked at Romero yesterday and I thought, I know it sounds weird, but shall I bring Davinson Sanchez on? That's how bad he was.
Yeah, it was awful.
Do you know, it was that bad. I thought Davinson Sanchez needs to come on for him. So I think it's an attitude change. I'm hearing that Conte brought the players in today for a surprise training session and had them running around and all that, which is a good thing. But I can't be bothered with all the running around. It's not about running around and all that stuff. It's about, you know, for me, you should have got the cones out, got the balls out, got an attacking coach out and say, this is how we score goals. This is how we press. This is how we do this. I don't care about running around. Your athletes getting paid 200 grand a week. I don't think the fitness is an issue as much, because you know, you look at yesterday, it feels like they've been run down to the ground too much. I think they need to be took off the pedal a bit. So I think if we play at Leicester and I see better football along with the fitness and along with the pressing, then cool. But if I just see us sitting off Leicester and breaking off the counter and we look lethargic, then as I said yesterday, I'll just continue to say, as much as everyone wants to go on about Daniel Levy out, we've got to start looking at Conte.
Yeah. Sean,
Oh, are
tell me
you
your
saying?
lineup.
Wait, hold on. Just be quickly, you're not twisting it, are you, Jacob, to say Conte out? You're not part of the hashtag Conte out crowd, are you?
No, that's not that far.
Because that's it's trending on Twitter right now. I just wanted to hear what you say.
No, Conte out. If you're Conte out, you like, who are you going to go and get then? You get fans.
Nobody,
You get fans
bro.
that don't answer
Sean.
that question. You know what I mean? I've had Tottenham fans before. It's like Mourinho out, Poch out, and I'm like, I don't mind you saying that, but
Yeah.
who would you bring in? And then as soon as you
Nobody.
ask that question, and they're like, I'm like, well, this is it. It's like you got to look at it as if you owned a business, find a business, and had an operations manager, I had a team leader here, this. I wouldn't just get rid of him and then someone goes, all right, then so you've got rid of him. What are you going to do? I don't know. I just thought I'd get rid of him. You got to have a strategy. Do you know what I mean? So if you've got Conte, if you bring Conte out, who are you bringing in? So if they go nobody,
it's exactly the same thing with Levy. People that are Levy out, they want. I say to them, you guys are on a plane, right? You're on a plane, and Levy's the pilot. And I ask you want him gone. You want to throw him out the fucking plane and put a parachute on his back and say, see you later. And I go, who do you want to take over the club? And they go, it's not my job to find the next person. I just don't want the guy we've got now. I'm like, okay, that's like being on the plane. You've just thrown Levy out and you turn around to the people on the plane and say, any of you can land the plane? Like before you want to throw Levy out of the plane, you got to make sure you got someone who can land it. You know,
and
it's the same with Conte as well. Sorry, Mo. I know you wanted to.
Anyway, so
yeah.
I want you, Sean, give me drop your socials,
10 seconds.
Drop your.
Yeah.
You got 15 seconds. The clock starts now. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate it, man. Listen, I loved it. I loved it today. It was a great little hour with you guys. You can meet me at Spurs Talk Show, all one word, Spurs Talk Show on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. But YouTube's my main home. And on that channel, you can find me doing watch-alongs of the games, previews, reviews. I do every single day. I do walks in the countryside with my dog where I get my thoughts off my chest. And lots of panel shows. I'd love to get you two on my show at some point, boys. It'd be awesome.
100%,
awesome to expand the current base that I'm working with. But yeah, so it's all Tottenham, and I love it. And it's a Spurs Talk Show. So anyone who wants to come and check it out, and we don't have echo chambers, so there's nobody that if I'm not Levy out, but I have people that are Levy out all day long. I'm not Conte's a prick. But people that think Conte, on my channel, every opinion is welcome and valid. So that's where you can find
100%.
me.
Jacob,
Thank you for having me again, Mo.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Sean. Jacob, drop your socials. Where can people find you, man?
Yeah, so I've got a channel called The One Up Top. I've had to pause it for a bit because life is more important sometimes. But I'm in the process of getting that forward. So it's predominantly Tottenham, but then I do a lot of previews on just the Premier League itself because I love talking about football. So there's a skit that I'll do where I'll do predictions and previews on every club. I'm just, at the minute, gathering a database of people, Spurs fans, United fans, Chelsea, Arsenal, getting them in WhatsApp groups, having a little chat, get everyone to know each other, and then give it a couple of weeks. Once I get myself a few days off work and my kids and stuff, then I'll be out there. So just, for now, if you're going to like and subscribe to my channel. It's The One Up Top. I'm on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, just follow it and give it by the end of the month. I'll be on there just voicing our opinions, and just like Sean said, I'll be happy to get you guys on because I don't want to get my voice on football. I just want everybody to have a voice on football. So it's all good.
And from all of us here at Never a Foul, make sure to drop a like before you leave here, and we know we'll see you today. There's a show later after the Champions League game. Follow Daps. I think it's Ty. They're reviewing the Champions League games. They're talking about City. They're talking about all things Champions League. So from all of us here at Never a Foul, from a boy Mo, from Sean and Jacob, we thank you all for watching, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon.